The storm on the mining outpost came without warning. One moment the skies were clear, the next dark clouds rolled in like an army, bringing with them sharp winds and blinding ice dust. Daniel Hayes, the only human engineer stationed on the fringe colony of Verusics, was outside fixing a power relay when the first shards of frozen rain cut across his faceplate. He cursed under his breath, tightening the last bolt before hurrying back to the shelter of his small maintenance station. But through the haze of blowing snow, he saw something moving. It wasn't human, too slim, too graceful, even in the violent storm. A tall figure stumbled, almost falling, clutching her side. Daniel's instincts overrode his sense of caution. Out here, a storm like this could freeze exposed skin solid in under 2 minutes. He ran toward her, boots sinking into the ice. When he reached her, he saw the truth. She was an alien, with pale lavender skin that shimmered faintly even in the gloom. Her dark hair was matted with frost, and her wide violet eyes stared at him with equal parts fear and desperation. "You're hurt?" Daniel shouted over the wind. She didn't answer. Maybe she didn't understand him, but she didn't resist when he pulled her arm over his shoulder and guided her toward his station. Inside, the heater hissed as he sealed the door. The storm howled outside, rattling the metal walls. She sank onto the bench, shivering violently. Her side was bleeding, a deep gash that was already beginning to ice over. Daniel grabbed his medkit. "Hold still," he said. She flinched when his gloved hand touched her, but didn't pull away. Her breathing was shallow, and her pupils narrowed at the sight of his tools. "It's all right," he reassured her. "I'm not going to hurt you." He worked quickly, cleaning the wound and sealing it with a dermal patch. When he was done, she sat silently, watching him with that same intense gaze. The room felt too small, the air too heavy. He realized he could hear her breathing slow, deliberate, as if she was studying his every movement. For a while, neither of them spoke. She touched the sealed wound, then looked at him again, her head tilting slightly. The expression on her face was hard to read. Gratitude, curiosity, something else. Finally, she broke the silence. Her voice was soft, melodic, speaking words he didn't understand. Daniel shook his head, giving a small smile. "Sorry, don't know the language." She frowned, then tried again. Her accent strange, but the words clearer this time. "You saved me." Daniel nodded. "Yeah, guess I did." There was another pause. Then, without warning, she leaned forward. Daniel froze. She was close to close. Her scent was unlike anything he'd smelled before, warm and sharp, like flowers mixed with metal. Her eyes locked on his, unblinking. Then in one quick movement, her lips brushed against his. It wasn't a long kiss, just a brief, strange electric moment. Her lips were cool at first, then warmed against his. Daniel's mind went blank. By the time he processed what had happened, she had already pulled back, her gaze unreadable. He blinked, stunned. What was that?" She didn't answer, only sat back, a faint flush spreading across her cheeks. If that was what the subtle shimmer in her skin meant, then she stood, clutching her side, and walked toward the door. "Hey, wait, you can't go out there, the storms." But she was already slipping through the hatch, her figure vanishing into the swirling snow. Before he could stop her, Daniel stood there for a moment, staring at the door. The storm raged outside, yet somehow, he felt as if the real disturbance had just happened inside his own station. He shook his head, muttering "weird day," and went back to his workbench. But as he tried to focus on repairing the damaged relay parts, his thoughts kept drifting back to the feel of her lipschool, then warm. He told himself it was nothing. It was probably some alien gesture of thanks. That was all still. It didn't feel like just thanks. Night fell, and the storm eased. Daniel expected to see her come back, maybe seeking shelter again, but she didn't return. By midnight, he had convinced himself she was probably fine. Her people lived in harsher climates than this. She was tough. She'd survive. The next morning, the alarm on his station blared. Motion sensors had tripped near the outer gate. Daniel, still groggy, threw on his jacket and grabbed his rifle. He stepped outside into the cold dawn. There she was, Lyra, though he didn't know her name, yet standing just beyond the gate. Her hair was still damp from the melting frost, her violet eyes locked on his. In her arms, wrapped in a silver cloth, was something small. Daniel frowned, walking toward her. "What's going on?" She stepped forward, holding out the bundle. "This," she said softly, "is yours." Confused, he peeled back the cloth. His breath caught. It was a baby, not fully human, not fully alien its skin. A soft pale shade between both their colors, its tiny hands flexing weakly. But its eyes. Its eyes were unmistakable. They were the exact shade of Daniel's. Daniel's mind spun. "What? That's impossible." Lyra's voice was calm, but there was a tremor in it. "One kiss. That is all it takes. For a life bond." And before Daniel could speak, a shadow passed overhead. Something was circling above them in the pale morning sky. Daniel's heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. Little bundle in his arms was warm, soft, and impossibly real. Its tiny fingers curled around his thumb with a strength no newborn should have. The baby blinked up at him with the same piercing gray-blue eyes he saw every morning in the mirror. "This isn't possible," Daniel muttered, almost to himself. "Humans and your kind. It doesn't work like this." Lyra stepped closer, her face half hidden beneath the hood of her silver travel cloak. "Not for most, but the bonding kiss changes everything." Her voice carried a strange weight, as if every word was centuries old. "It ties to souls. One heart, one life, one child." Daniel stared at her, searching her expression for any sign of a joke, a trick, a trap. "We met yesterday," he said slowly. "You were bleeding out in a snowstorm. Now you're telling me we have a kid?" She didn't flinch. "I'm not telling you, I'm showing you." The baby stirred, making a small cooing noise. Daniel's chest tightened. He didn't want to feel anything, but he couldn't stop. He was an engineer, a fixer of machines, not a father. Then the shadow that had passed overhead returned, this time lower. Daniel glanced up. The sky was a pale, cloudless blue now, but against it moved something black-winged shapes, large and gliding in slow circles. Lyra's violet eyes sharpened. "They found us." Double quotes. Daniel shifted the baby against his chest. "Who?" "My people," she said, her voice tightening. "The ones who say no child like this should live." Daniel swore under his breath. "And why's that?" "Because he is both of us," Lyra said, stepping to his side. "And that means he could become more than them." The winged shapes split into three, diving in different directions. Daniel's training on survival instincts kicked in. He scanned for cover. "We need to get inside, now." Lyra shook her head. "Side won't save us. They will tear through walls. We have to move." "Move where?" Daniel asked. "The nearest safe zone is 10 clicks away." She turned her head toward the jagged ridge of mountains to the east. "There's an old mining tunnel in the cliffs. It was abandoned decades ago. They won't follow us inside." "Why not?" Her gaze didn't leave the horizon, because what lives in there is worse than them. Daniel looked from the circling hunters to the mountains, then to the baby in his arms. He had a feeling. His quiet, boring life on this mining outpost had just ended forever. "All right," he said finally, tightening his grip on the child. "Lead the way." Lyra didn't smile. She just started walking, her long legs carrying her across the snow. With surprising speed, Daniel followed, every muscle tense. The hunters were descending now, their wings beating hard, sending spirals of frost into the air. Daniel glanced at the baby. "Hey, little one," he whispered under his breath. "If you really are mine, let's try to stay alive long enough to argue about it later." The snow crunched under Daniel's boots as he followed Lyra toward the dark line of mountains. The baby was light in his arms, but the weight of what it meant pressed heavy on his chest. Behind them, the sound of wings grew louder, steady, rhythmic beats cutting through the cold air. "Don't look back," Lyra said without turning her head. Daniel glanced over his shoulder anyway. 3 figures were closing in fast. They weren't just flying, they were hunting, their movements sharp and purposeful. Their armor gleamed silver in the sunlight, and their eyes glowed faintly even from a distance. "They're armed," Daniel muttered, "and they look like they've done this before." "They have," Lyra said grimly. "They are the Purge Guard. They erase mistakes." Daniel tightened his hold on the baby. "Mistakes? You mean us?" Lyra finished. "The child, most of all." The ground tilted upward as they reached the lower slopes of the mountains. The jagged cliffs towered above, their peaks disappearing into the thin clouds. God. Daniel spotted a narrow fissure in the rock, ahead a shadowed slit just wide enough for a person to pass through. There, Lyra pointed. The entrance to the old tunnels. They slipped inside just as the first of the winged hunters landed on the snow behind them. A spear of light hissed past Daniel's head, melting a chunk of ice on the wall. The echo in the tunnel made the sound deafening. Lyra pressed her hand against a control panel carved into the stone, and a section of rock slid closed behind them, sealing the way they came. The hunters' shouts echoed outside, followed by the pounding of fists against the sealed entrance. Daniel let out a shaky breath. "Okay, safe for now." Lyra didn't answer. She was staring down the tunnel, her eyes narrowing. "No, not safe. We traded one danger for another." The tunnel was wide enough for two people to walk side by side, but the air inside was warm and damp. Faint bioluminescent moss clung to the walls, casting an eerie green glow, and somewhere deeper inside, something was moving. Slow. Heavy dot. Daniel adjusted his grip on the baby. "What is that?" Lyra's voice was low. "An old mining station collapsed in these tunnels decades ago. After the miners left, something else moved in. My people call it the Hollow One. It doesn't like intruders." Daniel groaned. "Perfect. So we're hiding from killers. By walking into a monster's home?" A low, distant growl rolled through, the tunnel vibrating in his chest. The baby shifted, opening its bright eyes, as if sensing the threat. Lyra placed a hand on Daniel's arm, her touch firm. "Stay close to me. Do not run, no matter what you see." Daniel was about to ask why, but then he saw a massive shadow sliding along the far wall, moving in a way that no human or alien should. The air grew hotter. The green moss on the walls dimmed, as if the tunnel itself was holding its breath. And then, the eyes appeared. Two huge amber eyes glowing in the dark, fixed directly on them. Asterisk, the glowing amber eyes didn't blink. They hovered in the dark like two suns caught in the shadows, unblinking, watching. Daniel's instincts screamed at him to back away, but Lyra stayed still, her breathing slow, body tense but unmoving. "What is it?" Daniel whispered, his voice barely carrying in the damp air. Lyra didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped forward just one careful step, and then knelt, bowing her head slightly. "Do not speak loudly," she murmured. "It listens. It learns." The baby in Daniel's arms let out a tiny whimper. The moment the sound left the child's lips, the amber eyes moved. Slowly, deliberately, a shape began to emerge from the darkness. Massive, lemmed, covered in something that looked like a mixture of stone and scale. Its head brushed the ceiling, and when it stepped fully into the faint green moss light, Daniel could see faint carvings etched into its skin like ancient runes. "That's alive," Daniel muttered, his grip tightening protectively around the baby. Lyra's gaze stayed fixed on the creature. "The Hollow One is not a beast. It is a guardian." Daniel frowned. "Guardian of what?" Her eyes flicked toward him. "The truth you were never meant to know?" The creature lowered itself until its huge, blunt face was level with Daniel. Its nostrils flared, and Daniel felt a rush of hot, moist air wash over him. Then its gaze shifted to the baby. For several long seconds, nothing moved. Finally, a deep voice not from its mouth, but echoing inside Daniel's head, spoke. "Life-bond child. Human blood and royal blood." Daniel's stomach dropped. "Royal." Lyra's lips tightened. "I am not just from my people, Daniel. I am from their ruling bloodline. This child is heir to more than you can imagine." Daniel stared at her. "So that's why your people want it dead?" "Not just because it's mixed, but because it could inherit everything. Lyra nodded. An air of two worlds could unite them, or destroy them. To the Council, that risk is too great. The Hollow One's glowing eyes softened of such. A thing was possible for something so massive. You must choose. The voice boomed inside Daniel's mind. Run and be hunted forever, or face your hunters now and decide your own fate. Daniel took a step back, his mind racing. Facing them now meant fighting the Purge Guard head-on. Running meant a lifetime of looking over his shoulder. Either way, his life as an engineer on a forgotten mining outpost was over. Lyra turned to him, her eyes fierce. Whatever you decide, I will fight with you. The Hollow One leaned closer. Decide quickly. They are almost here. From somewhere outside the tunnel entrance, Daniel heard the pounding of metal against rock. The Purge Guard were breaking through. Asterisk. The pounding grew louder, metal clanging against stone. The sound of drills biting into the tunnel wall. Lyra's grip tightened on Daniel's arm. They've brought a breach cutter. Once they're through, we have seconds. The Hollow One's voice rumbled in Daniel's head. You cannot outrun them now. You must strike first. Daniel swallowed. Hard. He wasn't a soldier. But years of working alone on dangerous outposts had taught him something. If you wait for trouble to come to you, you lose. If we're doing this, we do it my way. Lyra hesitated. Your way. He shifted the baby carefully into a sling across his chest, freeing both hands. Humans don't win by being stronger. We win by making the enemy fight on our terms. Hollow One's eyes glowed brighter as if amused. Then make your stand human. Daniel quickly surveyed the tunnel. The old mining tracks were still in place, leading to a rusted ore cart sitting on a slight slope. Beside it, several ancient fuel canisters lay forgotten in the dust. Perfect. He yanked two of the canisters onto the cart and jammed a broken maintenance torch into the top of one. Lyra's eyes widened. Mean two? Yeah, Daniel said grimly. I mean two. The pounding at the entrance turned into a deafening crack as a section of rock exploded inward. Shards flew across the tunnel floor. The Purge Guard stepped through, silver armor gleaming, weapons drawn. Their leader pointed a blade toward Lyra, hand over the abomination. Daniel didn't move. Come and take him. They advanced just. As Daniel shoved the ore cart down the tracks, the wheels screamed as the cart picked up speed. The Purge Guard raised their weapons, but it was too late. The cart slammed into them, the torch sparking against the fuel canisters. The explosion ripped through the tunnel in a wave of fire and smoke. The shockwave knocked Daniel and Lyra to the ground. The Hollow One lowered its massive head, shielding them from flying debris. When the smoke cleared, two of the guards were down, their armor scorched. But the leader still stood, limping forward through the flames, eyes blazing with rage. His voice was a snarl. You'll pay for that, human. Daniel rose slowly, rifle in hand. Yeah, he said. Let's settle the bill. The blast had forced the Purge Guard back, but not far enough. Their leader, taller than the others, armor etched with jagged black markings, kept coming. Behind him, two more guards forced their way through the smoke, weapons raised. Daniel grabbed Lyra's hand. We move now. They ran, bursting out of the tunnel into the blinding daylight. The wind hit them hard, carrying the sharp bite of the ice ridge. Snow stretched out in every direction, glittering under the pale sun. High above, jagged cliffs cast long shadows, but there was nowhere to hide. The Hollow One's voice echoed. In their minds, the ridge is treacherous. The wrong step will kill you. And them. Daniel scanned the ground, a mix of solid ice and deep hidden cracks. An idea formed. Risky, stupid, very human. He set the baby in Lyra's arms. Don't. Stop moving until I tell you. Daniel, she began, but he was already running toward the nearest fissure. Drawing the Purge Guard's attention, the leader bellowed, "The human dies first." And charged. Daniel didn't aim for them. He aimed for the ground. Fired. Into the ice at his feet, again and again, cracks spider-webbing outward. The weight of the charging guards made the frozen surface groan. The leader raised his blade just as the ice beneath them gave way. Two of the guards plunged into the black water below, their armor dragging them under instantly. The leader managed to grab the edge, hauling himself up with a snarl. "You can't win, human." Daniel's rifle was empty. He tossed it aside, stepping forward. "Then I'll make sure you don't either." The fight was brutal and close. The leader's blade slashed at Daniel, cutting through his jacket and nicking skin. Daniel dodged, grabbed a shard of jagged ice, and drove it between the armor plates at the alien's side. The leader roared, stumbling back right onto another. The thin patch of ice the ground shattered. This time, there was no grabbing the edge. Daniel staggered, chest heaving, blood dripping from a shallow cut on his arm. Lyra was already at his side, the baby safe in her arms. She looked at him like she was seeing something entirely new. "You fought like a death worlder," she said softly. Daniel smirked, wiping frost from his face. "We call it being human." The wind on the ridge had softened, but the silence was heavy. The purge guard were gone, some lost to the freezing waters, others buried beneath the shattered ice. Only the pale sun watched over the survivors. Daniel stood still for a long moment, catching his breath. His muscles ached, his fingers were numb, and every part of him screamed for rest. But when he turned and saw Lyra, holding the baby close to her chest, his exhaustion faded into something else. Entirely, they started down the ridge together, the hollow one moving behind them like a silent shadow. It had left the tunnel to see them off. But Daniel could tell it would never leave its mountains. At the base of the ridge, Lyra stopped. "If we keep going east, we reach the borderlands," she said. "There are colonies there. Places where the council has no reach." Daniel nodded slowly. "And if we stay here, they will send more," she said simply. "They will never stop." Daniel glanced at the baby. Tiny fingers reached out, gripping the fabric of his jacket. For a moment, Daniel saw not just a child, but a choice of future. He had come to Verisix to escape responsibility, to live quietly among machines. But now the quiet life was gone. He looked at Lyra. "Then we keep moving. We find somewhere safe. We raise him together." Lyra's violet eyes softened. "Not just safe," she said, "strong, so that when they come for him again, he will be ready." They walked on. The snow thinned into patches of frost. Ahead, the jagged peaks gave way to open plains under a pale orange sky. The hollow one stopped at the edge of the ridge, its voice echoing in their minds one last time. "You have chosen the harder road, but it is the only one worth walking." Daniel didn't look back. He tightened his arm around Lyra's shoulders, feeling the warmth of the baby between them. Somewhere beyond that horizon, a new life waited, one they would build, one they would fight for, and far above, high in the thin clouds, a single silver-winged shape watched them go, before turning away, as if deciding for now to let them live.